"Oh my God," Amaka gasped, tears filling her eyes. "Who could abandon a baby in a place like this?" The infant let out a weak, broken cry, then went limp. Panicked, Amaka scooped the tiny body into her arms, pressing it tightly against her bony chest, trying to share what little warmth she still had. Night had fallen over the slums at the edge of the city. Rain puddles shimmered faintly under the weak streetlights, reflecting off the muddy ground with a damp, filthy glow. Stray dogs howled in the alleys, mosquitoes buzzed in the air, and the stench of rotting garbage filled every breath. Amaka, just 12 years old, frail, carrying a ragged sack almost bigger than her own body, wandered barefoot through it all. Her feet were calloused, cracked, stepping over broken glass without even flinching. All day, she had eaten nothing but a handful of dried cassava, her stomach burning with hunger. Yet she still pushed herself on, searching for anything in the city dump that might sell. That night, she had stayed later than usual, because at night, fewer adults scavenged, only kids like her and the broken souls of the streets. Maybe, just maybe, she'd find some scrap of metal or plastic bottles that could buy enough cassava flour for her sick mother. The cold wind whipped at her thin shirt, making her shiver. She pulled it close to her chest, teeth chattering, and then... A faint sound broke the silence. Amaka froze. Her heart pounded, eyes wide. At first she thought it was just a kitten mewling somewhere in the trash, but the sound came again, fainter, weaker, and filled with despair. Her blood ran cold. That wasn't a cat. That was a baby crying. The sack slipped from her shoulder, crashing to the ground. Her legs trembled as she glanced around. The dump was pitch black, lit only by the silver moon peeking through clouds. Rats scurried, flies buzzed. And yet that cry kept cutting through the night, like a knife stabbing straight into her chest. "No, no, it can't be," she whispered. She stumbled toward the sound, her bare feet sinking into damp trash. Closer, closer, until finally between two rotting crates wrapped in filthy rags was a small bundle. It moved. It cried. Amaka fell to her knees, hands shaking as she pulled the rags aside. And in that instant, her heart nearly stopped. A newborn, a baby girl, skin pale, lips turning purple from the cold, tiny fists flailing weakly. Her eyes barely opened, a fragile flicker of life shining through. "Oh my God," Amaka choked out, tears spilling. "Who could throw away a child like this?" The baby wailed once more, weak, pitiful. Then her breath faltered. Amaka's panic surged. She pulled the child against her chest, pressing her close, desperate to share any warmth her starving body could give. In that moment, hunger disappeared. Her sick mother waiting at home faded from thought. All that remained was this fragile life, abandoned in the filth, trembling against death's grip. "I can't leave her. I just can't," Amaka whispered, biting her lip to hold back sobs. As she lifted the infant into her arms, the moonlight fell across something glinting at the baby's neck. A delicate gold chain, etched with intricate patterns, sparkling against the darkness of the dump. Amaka's breath caught. A baby left to die, wearing something so precious. But there was no time for questions. The child shivered violently, her breaths growing shallow. Amaka clutched her tighter, turned her back to the reeking dump, and stumbled forward, praying through trembling lips. Please, God, please, let me save her. Even if I'm poor, even if I have nothing, don't let her die in my arms. The wind screamed against the corrugated roofs of the slums. Amaka's steps shook, but her resolve did not. She didn't know it yet, but this was the moment she carried a child out of the trash, the moment destiny shifted forever. In a shack perched on the edge of the swamp, a faint oil lamp flickered, casting shadows across Amaka's thin, tired face. She was only 12, yet her eyes carried the weight of sorrows far beyond her age. The shack was little more than a broken box, rusted tin sheets riddled with holes, walls patched with rotting wood and scraps of nylon. Whenever the rain came, it poured straight through the roof, flooding the dirt floor, forcing mother and daughter to huddle together on a worn mat, shivering, waiting for the storm to pass. And yet, in that hopeless poverty, Amaka grew up gentle, obedient, but tough. Her mother, whom everyone simply called Mama Amaka, was a frail woman with a bent back and hands hardened from years of scavenging bottles and scrap metal at the dump just to buy food. She was mother and father all in one, the only anchor in Amaka's small world. Her father. To Amaka, he was nothing more than a shadow in her imagination. He had disappeared when she was barely 2 years old. No letters, no phone calls, not a single coin sent home. Whenever Amaka asked, her mother would only sigh and whisper, "Your father went far away, and he's never coming back." But Amaka still dreamed. She dreamed one day her father would walk through the door, scoop her into his arms, hand her a doll, and walk her to school with laughter on his lips. Yet that dream always shattered, drowned out by the croaking frogs in the swamp outside, replaced with the harshness of reality. Even without a father, even in crushing poverty, Amaka clung to one burning wish: to go to school. She loved the sound of chalk squeaking across the board, loved the booming voice of the teacher as he explained lessons. In her tattered notebook, she had once written, "One day, Amaka will be a lawyer. Amaka will fight for justice for the poor." But life does not leave dreams untouched. One day, disaster struck. While scavenging, Mama Amaka stepped on a rusty nail. The wound seemed small, but it quickly festered, swelling, filling with pus, until she could no longer walk. Medicine was too expensive, hospitals only for the wealthy. From that day, Amaka's fragile shoulders carried everything. She stopped going to school. Her back bent under the weight of a torn sack. She wandered the dump, digging through filth for scraps of metal and bottles. Whenever her body ached too much to move, she thought of her mother, groaning in pain back at the shack, thought of her dream of a house that didn't leak, and forced herself to keep going. The villagers looked at her with pity and disdain. Some whispered, "That little girl thinks she can be a lawyer. How laughable." Others sneered, "Her life is nothing but trash." Amaka heard it all. She never replied. She just carried her sack in silence, living in silence, keeping one vow burning in her heart. I must save my mother. I must not lose hope. Each night, after long days under the sun and rain, she returned to the pitch-dark shack, tending to her mother, curling up on the floor as rain drummed on the tin roof. In that silence, she would hum the lullaby her mother once sang. "Though storms may rage, God still hears me." Perhaps it was that fragile flame of faith that kept her heart from turning to stone. So, when the faint cry of an abandoned newborn rang out from the dump, she did not turn away. She bent down and picked it up, She knew she was poor. She knew her mother was sick. She knew one more life would be another burden. But when she saw the baby's purpling face, the trembling lips, Amaka's heart chose compassion over indifference. In that moment, she grew up. She was no longer just a poor child chasing a vague dream. She became, unwillingly, a mother, a protector of two fragile lives, her ailing mother and this forsaken infant. That night, as she laid the baby beside her mother, Amaka whispered a vow into the darkness. I will care for her as if she were my own sister. Even though I am poor, I will not let her die. I will do everything for Mama and for her. Little did Amaka know, that single decision, the choice to cradle a child plucked from the garbage, was the first step toward an extraordinary destiny, one she herself never dared to imagine. The next morning, a heavy mist lay thick over the swamp. Sunlight streamed through holes in the tin roof, scattering pale rays across the damp shack. In that suffocating space came the sound of relentless coughing, dry splintering, like brittle wood snapping. Mama Amaka lay on the mat, hair plastered to her sweaty forehead, legs swollen and festering with the stench of infection. Beside her, Amaka knelt, her small hands trembling as she pressed a damp cloth to her mother's burning skin. She shook, not just from the cold, but from fear. The newborn she had saved lay swaddled in a faded cloth, crying weakly, its voice piercing her heart. And in that moment, Amaka felt trapped in a nightmare. Her mother sick and dying, the baby starving for milk, and she, just 12 years old, was forced to carry the weight of the whole world. Mom, Amaka choked, clutching her mother's frail hand. Please don't leave me. I'll find money for medicine. I'll do anything at all. Mama Amaka tried to open her eyes, her lips pale and trembling. My daughter, I'm sorry. I couldn't give you a better life, watching you struggle like this. It breaks my heart. Amaka shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, don't say that. I don't care about hardship. I only care about losing you. You have to live. Please promise me you'll live. But instead of answering, Mama Amaka was seized by violent coughing. Her thin body convulsed, the wound on her leg tearing open, pus and blood soaking through the ragged bandage. Amaka panicked, throwing her arms around her mother, sobbing, her voice breaking. Mom, please don't leave me. The tiny shack seemed to shrink in around them, filled with the sound of Amaka's desperate cries and the newborn's wailing. From that day on, Amaka knew her life had turned down a dark road. No more school, no more sitting in classrooms dreaming of the future. Now every day meant waking before dawn, a sack on her back, a newborn strapped to her chest, stumbling toward the dump. Under the burning sun, surrounded by stench, Amaka dug through piles of rot, collecting bottles, rusted metal, scraps of plastic. The smell made her gag, but she forced herself on. When the baby cried hungrily against her chest, she whispered, rocking him, Shh. Don't cry, little one. I'll find something for you. Just don't cry. But where could she find milk? The few coins she made from scraps barely bought a handful of cassava flour. She would mix it thin with water, spoon it carefully into the baby's mouth. He drank a little, then spit it up, crying again. The helplessness crushed her chest until she could barely breathe. The neighbors started whispering. An old woman shook her head. She can't even feed herself. And now she's holding on to a baby. Foolish child. A man snickered. Maybe it's really her own kid, pretending she found it so people will pity her. Those cruel words cut like knives. Amaka lowered her head, bit her lip until it bled, clutching the baby tighter, shielding him from their stares. Day after day, she became a shadow, morning scavenging, evening selling scraps, night tending to both her mother and the crying infant. Every time her mother moaned in pain, Amaka felt her heart being crushed in someone's fist. She wanted to scream, to beg the world for help, but no one reached out a hand. Then, the true tragedy struck. One hot afternoon, after hours under the sun, Amaka returned to find her mother lying still on the mat. Her face was ashen, lips blue, breath shallow. "Mom," Amaka cried, collapsing beside her. "Please, wake up. Don't leave me, I beg you." The baby wailed, a sharp, fragile cry that sounded like a death knell. Amaka clutched her mother, shaking her, sobbing until her voice tore the air of the slums. She ran outside, banging on doors, screaming, "Please, someone help my mother. She's dying." But the neighbors only shook their heads. One muttered, "We're poor too. Where would we get money for medicine?" Another shrugged coldly. "That's just fate. No one can help." Amaka collapsed on the dirt path, vision blurred with tears. She stumbled back, holding both her unconscious mother and the wailing baby, whispering with trembling lips, "Please, God, don't take my mother from me. Don't take this baby away. Let me bear all the suffering. Just don't tear my family apart." That night, the shack shook under howling winds. Rats scurried in the corners. Frogs croaked outside the swamp. And in that desolate scene stood the silhouette of a starving child, cradling her sick mother and the abandoned infant. Like a flickering flame in a storm. She was only 12 years old, but her eyes already carried the despair of an adult. "If I have to beg, I'll beg. If I have to sell my life, I'll do it. But I will not let my mother die. I will not let this baby die." She didn't know it yet, but in that pit of suffering, destiny was already preparing a twist no one could imagine. In the days that followed, the shack grew darker. Mama Amaka remained bedridden, her breath weak, her infected legs swollen and reeking. Amaka became the hands, the feet, the backbone of the family, caring for her mother while nursing the infant. The baby cried for milk each night, while Amaka's own body withered, her eyes ringed dark, as if she had aged 10 years overnight. At first the neighbors looked on with pity, but slowly that pity turned into suspicion. Then contempt. Whispered gossip grew sharper each time Amaka passed by with the baby in her arms. One morning, as she begged for thin porridge from a neighbor, a group of women washing clothes by the canal sneered. "See that? The trash girl carrying a baby around everywhere. Who knows if she really found it?" Another added with venom, "Oh, please. It's obviously her own. Poor girls grow up too fast. She probably made a mistake, had a baby, and now pretends she just found it." Laughter burst out, cutting like salt into Amaka's wounds. She lowered her head, clutching the baby closer, walking away faster. She wanted to scream, "No! This baby was abandoned, and I only wanted to save him." But she knew. No one would believe her. To them, she was just a trash girl, not worth listening to. From that day, the contempt became sharper. Some shouted straight to her face, "Stay away from my house. That baby is cursed. Raising it will only bring you bad luck." A man at the tea stall scoffed, voice dripping with disdain. "Hey, girl, Throw that burden away. You can't even feed yourself, and you think you can feed it. You'll starve to death with it. The stall erupted in cruel laughter, drowning out the baby's piercing cry. Amaka trembled, hugging him tight, and ran, her tears mingling with sweat as she fled those merciless voices. Every night, when Amaka returned to the shack, she sat between two fragile lives, a mother gasping for breath and a baby crying from hunger. She would break her tiny piece of dried cassava in half, soak one part in water for her mother, and keep nothing for herself. Some nights, when the baby's cries refused to stop, Amaka would clutch him close, rocking back and forth, sobbing along with him. "Please don't cry. I'm sorry. I'll find a way to feed you. I swear I will." But the next morning, standing under the scorching sun with the baby in her arms, she stretched out her trembling hands to the passing crowd. Most turned away. Some scoffed. "A kid, carrying a kid. What kind of scam is this?" An old woman snapped, "Take it back where you found it. That child is cursed. Bringing it home will only destroy your family." The words hit Amaka like a slap across the face. She staggered, but still clutched the baby tightly, whispering in her heart, "No, I will never abandon you. Even if the whole world turns its back, I'll stay." And yet, among countless cold stares, one rare gaze of kindness appeared. That day, a frail old man stopped. His shirt was faded, his hand gripping a wooden cane, his eyes soft as he looked at Amaka. He studied her for a moment, then pulled out a few wrinkled notes from his pocket and pressed them into her hand. "Child, I don't have much, but buy some milk for the baby. Don't give up. God sees everything." Amaka froze, then dropped to her knees, eyes shining with tears. "Sir, thank you. Thank you so much." That night, with that little money, she bought a bit of diluted milk. She spooned it carefully into the baby's mouth. His cries faded, and his tiny hands wrapped tightly around her finger, clinging to life. The sight made tears stream down Amaka's cheeks, but this time they were tears of relief. She held him close, whispering, "Don't worry, little one. No matter what anyone says, I will never abandon you. You are my family now." But that brief comfort couldn't hide the truth. Amaka was being cast out. Neighbors stopped lending her anything, stopped speaking to her, even avoided her gaze. They called her shack a nest of sickness and curses. Amaka knew she had been completely cut off, yet in her eyes a strange light burned brighter. It wasn't childish innocence anymore. It was determination. She told herself, "One day, I'll prove them all wrong. This baby isn't a curse. He is a gift from God." Little did Amaka know, in the very moment she made that vow, the wheel of fate was already turning. Soon, the arrival of a powerful stranger would flip her entire world upside down. That night, dark clouds smothered the swamp sky. Wind whistled through the cracks of the rotting wooden walls. Rain drummed on the rusted tin roof, like a funeral beat. Inside the dim shack, the oil lamp flickered weakly, casting light on Mama Amaka's pale face, her lips cracked and dry. She lay still, gasping shallow breaths, each inhale catching in her chest, each exhale weaker than the last. Amaka sat by her side, clutching her mother's icy hand, eyes brimming with tears. Beside her, the newborn cried, his frail wails mingling with the heavy sorrow filling the shack. "Mom, please, wake up. Don't leave me." Amaka sobbed, shaking her mother's arm gently. But Mama Amaka only groaned faintly, her eyelids fluttering before she slipped back into unconsciousness. Her body burned like fire, yet her hands were frozen like ice. Amaka felt her heart being torn apart. Desperate, she bolted outside, banging on doors, pleading, "Please help my mother. She's dying. I beg you." But door after door slammed shut, faces turned away. Cold voices replied, "Everyone should mind their own. We're struggling too. And worse, that's your family's curse. Don't waste our time." Amaka collapsed in the muddy path, wailing like a child lost in the dark. But she couldn't stay down. Wiping her tears, she ran back, holding her mother and the crying baby, whispering with trembling lips, "I won't let you die, Mom. I promise. I'll find a way. No matter what it takes." The next morning, she carried the baby into the marketplace, standing among the rushing crowd. Her hands shook as she begged, "Please, just a little help. My mother is so sick. My baby brother is starving. Please, anything." But most walked past. Some sneered, "A child begging with a child, what a trick." Another smirked, "That's just karma catching up." The cruel words nearly crushed her. But then the baby's hoarse cries rose, pulling her back to her feet. She couldn't fall, because if she did, both her mother and the baby would be lost. That afternoon, while she stood trembling under the scorching sun, a street vendor woman took pity and slipped a bowl of cold porridge into her hands. "Eat, child. Give the baby a little too. Don't let him cry himself weak." Amaka bowed her head again and again in thanks, hands shaking as she fed the baby spoon by spoon. Watching him quiet down, his clear little eyes blinking up at her, a fragile spark of hope flickered in her chest. But when she returned home, Mama Amaka was already slipping deep into delirium, muttering broken words, eyes shut tight, breath heavy and ragged. Amaka laid the baby down on the mat, dropped to her knees, and shook her mother's thin shoulders. "Mom, please, don't leave me. I beg you, wake up. I need you. The baby needs you. If you go, how can we survive?" Her tears streamed, wetting her mother's bony hands. In her fevered haze, Mama Amaka's lips parted just enough to whisper, "My daughter, don't abandon that baby. Raise him. It's God's will." Then she sank back into unconsciousness, leaving Amaka trembling, her heart breaking into pieces. That night, Amaka didn't sleep a second. She sat in the shack, one arm cradling the baby, the other laying a damp cloth on her mother's burning forehead, eyes wide open in the dark. She whispered like a desperate prayer, "Lord, please hear me. I don't need anything for myself. Just save my mother. If she dies, I'll have no one left. Please, have mercy." The wind howled outside. Insects screeched endlessly, making her prayer sound even more hopeless. By the next morning, her mother's condition was worse, her body ice-cold, shuddering in spasms. Amaka knew one more delay and she would lose her. With the baby in her arms, she ran to the main road, crying out to anyone, "Please, take my mother to the hospital. Please, save her." But no one stopped. Sleek cars sped past, leaving the little girl swallowed in dust. She fell to her knees by the roadside, tears blurring her sight, clutching the baby, who wailed without pause. Inside, her soul sank into an abyss of despair. She had endured hunger, humiliation, insults, yet her mother's life was still slipping away. Shaking, she whispered, "Mom, I don't want to lose you." But If heaven truly takes you away, then please, give me strength to raise this baby. I'll keep your promise for you." She didn't know that right there, as her tiny hands clung desperately to her mother's fading life. The wheel of fate was turning. And soon, someone powerful, someone from a world far removed from the mud and poverty, was about to cross her path. After a stormy night, Amaka was nearly spent. She sat slumped beside her mother, clutching the baby close. Her eyes were sunken, her lips cracked, her hands still dabbing her mother's sweaty forehead. Her mother's breath was so faint, Amaka feared if she blinked, she'd lose her forever. Outside, the sky hung gray. The swamp stank heavy, and birds wailed like mourners of her last hope. When Amaka carried the baby out to the main road again, her bare feet trembled from exhaustion and hunger. Under the blazing sun, she held out her hand to passers-by, her voice hoarse. "Please, help me. My mother is dying. Please save her." But people pulled away, some avoiding her like a plague, others tossing cruel remarks. Amaka felt her heart shatter, until suddenly a gentle hand rested on her shoulder. She turned, startled. Before her stood a woman in her 40s, plump but kind, dressed in a faded blouse. Her eyes were full of pity. "Child, why are you crying here like this? Where is your mother?" she asked softly. Amaka broke down, dropping to her knees. "Auntie, please save my mother. She's very sick. She can't move anymore. Please, just help her this once." The woman, whom the neighborhood called Mama Kosi, hesitated. She'd heard the rumors about Amaka, that she carried home a strange baby, that her family was cursed. But looking into those desperate, pleading eyes, her heart softened. "Take me to her, now," she said firmly. Overjoyed, Amaka ran ahead, clutching the baby, leading the way. When they reached the shack, Mama Kosi froze. There lay Mama Amaka, face bluish, legs swollen and oozing pus through dirty rags. The newborn beside her was frail and thin. The sight pierced her heart. "Oh Lord, how have you suffered all alone like this?" she gasped. Without a second thought, she called for help. A few men from the neighborhood at first hesitated, but at her insistence, they finally agreed. Together, they carried Mama Amaka onto a rusty pushcart and wheeled her straight to the village clinic. Amaka sat behind, clutching the baby, tears pouring as she whispered, "Mom, hold on. We're saving you. You must live." At the clinic, nurses panicked at her condition. They rushed injections, cleaned wounds, hooked IV drips. For the first time in weeks, Amaka saw her mother lying on a clean bed, with people tending to her. She fell to her knees, sobbing, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you for not abandoning us." Mama Kosi placed a hand on her shoulder and said gently, "Child, don't carry suffering alone anymore. Not everyone is cruel. There are still those willing to help. Remember that." Amaka hugged the baby tighter, lifting tearful eyes to her, voice trembling. "I'll never forget. I'll always be grateful." And in that moment, amidst the darkness of poverty and illness, a small light was lit. It wasn't enough to chase all the shadows away, but enough to remind Amaka that some hands of kindness still reached for her. What she didn't know was that this faint light was only the beginning. Soon, a door would open to a destiny beyond anything she had ever dared dream, toward the most powerful figure she could ever imagine. During the days Mama Amaka stayed at the clinic, Amaka felt as if life had grown a shade brighter. Her mother had survived the brink of death, still weak, but no longer slipping away. Each evening, Amaka sat with the baby on the porch, watching the sunset fall over distant fields, whispering gratitude for Mama Kosi and those who helped. But that fragile peace didn't last. The medicine, the treatments, the costs, they grew heavier each day, and the pennies from scavenging bottles and scrap were nowhere near enough. One morning, Amaka decided to carry the baby to a bigger street in the city, hoping the crowd might spare some coins for her mother's medicine. The road into the city center was packed, sleek, luxury cars flashing by, leaving trails of dust. Amaka stood trembling on the curb, hand outstretched, voice cracked and hoarse. "Please, help us. My mother is very sick." But people walked past as if she were invisible. A few eyes glanced coldly before turning away. Her heart grew heavier, ready to give up, when suddenly a black luxury car screeched to a stop right in front of her. The door swung open. Out stepped a middle-aged man in a sharp-tailored suit, his presence commanding, his face stern yet shadowed by deep weariness. It was none other than Adewale, the billionaire tycoon, owner of vast financial empires, a man so powerful they called him the King of Money. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "That's Mr. Adewale. Why did he stop here? Why would a man like him notice a little beggar girl?" Adewale stared at Amaka for a long moment, drawn into the clear, desperate yet unyielding eyes of the child. Then he lowered his voice, deep and resonant. "Why are you standing here, holding a baby? Where are your parents?" Amaka's words tumbled out, broken and trembling. "My father left long ago. My mother is very sick. She's at the clinic. I have no money for her medicine. And this baby, I found her in the garbage. If I hadn't picked her up, she would have died. I couldn't abandon her." At that, something in Adewale's face shifted. His sharp gaze softened. He looked down at the infant in Amaka's arms, and in that instant, lightning struck his soul. Around the baby's neck glimmered a worn silver chain, its pendant carved into a lily flower. The very same chain he had once placed around the neck of his newborn daughter, the child who had gone missing years ago. Adewale's body shook violently. His hand trembled as he touched the pendant, eyes brimming with tears. "Dear God, this chain, this baby, could she be my daughter?" Amaka froze, bewildered. The crowd gasped in shock, murmurs rising like waves. The lost daughter of the billionaire. If that's true, that little girl's fate will change forever. And right there, in the middle of the street, Adewale dropped to his knees. He clutched the baby tight against his chest, tears soaking her soft hair as he whispered in a trembling voice, torn between joy and pain. "My daughter, I've searched for you all these years, and finally, I've found you." Amaka stood frozen, heart racing. Was this a dream? A billionaire, kneeling before her, calling the baby she rescued from the trash his daughter? In her mind, only one thought rang out. Maybe this is the miracle God promised me. But Amaka did not know. The arrival of Adewale would not only bring hope for her mother and change her life forever, it would also awaken storms of greed, secrets long buried, and battles that would spill both blood and tears. The noisy street fell silent as the nation's most powerful tycoon knelt, cradling the baby. Whispers buzzed through the air. Could it really be his long-lost child? Unbelievable. Fate truly mocks us all. Amaka's eyes brimmed with tears as she watched. She, the poor outcast despised by her neighbors, was witnessing a billionaire tremble over a baby she had saved. Adewale lifted his head, eyes red yet burning with power. Child, who left this baby in the trash? How does she wear my family's necklace? Tell me everything you know. Amaka bowed her head, voice shaking. I don't know. One night, I found her dumped in the garbage behind the market. She had nothing but a torn cloth and this chain. I couldn't leave her there. I brought her home to my mother. Hearing this, Adewale's grip tightened, his whole body trembling, rage and anguish colliding. All those years, all the money spent searching, all the nights haunted by guilt. Only to learn his daughter had been discarded like trash. The crowd swelled, and among them were faces from Amaka's slum. Gasps broke out as they realized the cursed child they mocked was in fact the lost heiress of a billionaire. One woman, who had once shouted insults at Amaka, now paled, whispering, "My God, I cursed his precious daughter." And in that crowd stood a man in a fine suit, eyes sharp with malice. His name was Richard, a distant cousin of Adewale, a man long scheming to seize the family fortune. Seeing the child return, his gut twisted with fear. But then an evil grin crept across his lips. He muttered, "If this girl lives, my plans collapse. No, I won't allow it. I'll erase her. Again." Meanwhile, Adewale turned back to Amaka, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. "Child, you saved my daughter. From this day, you and your mother will never know hunger again. I will care for your family. But first, take me to your mother. I want to meet the woman who raised a girl with such a noble heart." Amaka's body froze. She had never dreamed of hearing such words. Tears streamed as she nodded, clutching the baby as she followed Adewale's sleek car. People parted silently, still stunned. At the clinic, Adewale entered, sunlight cutting across the small room. On the bed lay Mama Amaka, frail, her breath shallow. She gasped when she saw the man from television and newspapers standing at her side. Sir, she stammered. But Adewale quickly knelt, grasped her hand, voice choked with gratitude. "You need not fear. You and your daughter have saved my child. From today, your family is my family." Mama Amaka's eyes welled. She never imagined such a moment. Mocked by neighbors one day, honored by a billionaire the next. She squeezed Amaka's hand and whispered weakly, "See, my daughter. Heaven has eyes. A good heart is always rewarded." At that moment, Amaka felt her chest burst with emotion. She looked at her mother, at the baby, and at Adewale, the powerful man weeping before her. She knew this was no dream. This was the turning point of her life. But outside, in the shadows of the corridor, Richard slipped away. His eyes gleamed with deadly intent. To seize power, he would have to strike soon, and Amaka, and the baby she saved, were the first obstacles he vowed to destroy. Outside, the sky above the market suddenly whipped into violent winds. It was as if the universe itself was preparing for a storm where justice and evil would collide head-on. Since the day Mr. Adewale reclaimed his long-lost daughter, The swampy countryside burned with a new fire. Everywhere, people whispered. Some regretted ever mocking Amaka. Others trembled knowing the cruel words they had once thrown at the beggar girl were in fact aimed at the billionaire's heiress. But for Amaka, joy came tangled with unease. She felt something lurking in the shadows behind this sudden glitter of fortune. And she was right. Elsewhere, in a lavish room hidden behind heavy curtains, Richard sat brooding over a glass of wine. The deep red liquid shimmered as his eyes cut sharp as blades. On the television, the news replayed the scene of Adewale holding the child, kneeling in the middle of the street. Richard's grip on the glass tightened, as if he wanted to crush it in his hand. "Pathetic," he hissed. "For years I've waited, just steps away from seizing the Adewale fortune, and now a ragged street girl drags back that child to ruin everything. No, I will not let them live." His voice dropped, cold as ice. "Tomorrow, Amaka and that baby will be gone." That night, as Amaka sat by her mother's bed at the clinic, a strange sound crept from the window. She looked up, just in time to glimpse a shadow slipping away. Her heart skipped, but she only gripped her mother's hand tighter, whispering, "It's okay, Mama. I'm here." Yet deep inside, a wave of dread began to rise. The next day, Adewale sent a car to bring Amaka and her mother into the city, into his sprawling mansion. It was a world Amaka had never known. Iron gates, stretching sky-high, guards in pressed uniforms, endless halls lined with red carpets, chandeliers glittering like frozen stars. The servants eyed her and her mother with curiosity, half respectful, half suspicious. Before them all, Adewale declared, "This is Amaka, the girl who saved my daughter. From this day forward, she and her mother live here. They are family." Murmurs rippled, though none dared speak aloud. Amaka bowed her head, her small hands trembling, the moment still unreal. But then, from the corner of the hall, a mocking voice sliced the air. "Family? You would let a filthy rag-picker into the house of Adewale. Are you not afraid the world will laugh at you?" Every gaze turned. Richard stepped forward in his immaculate suit, lips curled in a cold smile. His eyes scanned Amaka with a blade-sharp contempt. Amaka staggered back, heart pounding. In that instant, she knew. This man was the danger her soul had warned her of. Adewale's brow furrowed. "Richard, this girl is our family's savior. Show her respect." Richard bowed slightly, the false smile never leaving his lips. "Of course, cousin. I only worry. Some might exploit your kindness." After all, a poor orphan girl dragging along a baby with no clear origin, such things invite rumors. Amaka's cheeks burned. She clutched the baby tightly, words stuck in her throat. But Adewale gripped her hand firmly and declared for all to hear, "I trust this girl. Whoever insults her, insults me." The air grew thick, tense as steel. Richard's smirk twitched, his eyes flashing venom. He knew, if he wanted power, he'd have to strike harder, darker. That very night, he sent men to shadow the girl. Near midnight, as Amaka carried the baby down a dark hallway, humming softly to soothe her to sleep, two strange men emerged from the shadows. One blocked her path, the other closed in from behind. Their eyes burned with malice. "Little girl, hand over the child. You're not worthy to keep her." Amaka froze, clutching the baby, backing against the wall. Her heart thundered like a war drum. but her voice rang out fierce and unyielding. "No, she is my sister. You will not touch her." One of them sneered, reaching to snatch the child, when suddenly footsteps thundered down the hall. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Adewale's bodyguards stormed in, shouting, "Stop right there!" The men panicked, tried to flee, but too late. They were wrestled to the ground in seconds. Dragged out, they cried desperately, "We were just following orders. Please, spare us." Amaka collapsed to the floor, trembling, clutching the baby tight against her chest. Tears streamed down her face, fear mixed with burning anger. She finally understood. There was a hidden hand, a shadowy force, determined to rip everything from her. When Adewale heard the news, he stormed in at once. He lifted Amaka into his arms, his voice trembling with rage. "Daughter, do not be afraid. I swear, no one will ever harm you or the child again. Those behind this will pay." At the end of the hall, Richard stood with his hands buried deep in his pockets, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. He knew his first act had failed, but in his mind, darker schemes were already unfolding. Outside the mansion, storm clouds rolled over the city, thick and heavy. A tempest was forming, heralding a coming clash of justice and treachery that would consume every fate in its path. The next morning, the Adewale estate buzzed with tension. After the attack on Amaka, Adewale ordered a full police investigation. At first, the captured thugs stayed silent, hiding their master. But under the crushing weight of the law and Adewale's power, one of them finally broke. The one who hired us, it was Mr. Richard. The revelation shook the Adewale family to its core. For years, Richard had worn the mask of loyalty, the face of a dutiful relative. Now, the mask shattered. Adewale's fury exploded. He slammed his fist on the table and roared, "Treachery!" He plotted against my child and dared lay a hand on Amaka, the one who saved my daughter. This time, he will answer to justice. The trial date was set swiftly. The entire city buzzed. Everyone wanted to see it. The wealthiest family in the nation, dragging one of their own into court. The courtroom was packed to the brim. Reporters jostled with cameras flashing. Amaka sat beside her mother, still cradling the baby in her arms. She had never stepped foot in a place so solemn. Every eye turned toward her, some with pity, some with curiosity, others with admiration. Then Richard entered, dressed sharply. His arrogant smile never wavered. He believed money and influence would shield him. But when the prosecutor's voice rang out, charges of attempted murder, hiring thugs to attack a child, conspiring to seize family assets, the room erupted in gasps. Amaka fixed her gaze on Richard. Gone was the fear. In her clear eyes burned a quiet strength. She remembered that night, the hatred in his stare. Her fear had hardened into resolve. She squeezed her small hand tight and whispered, "Don't worry, little one. Evil will not win." The trial grew tense. Richard's lawyers protested, calling it slander, a misunderstanding. But the evidence was overwhelming. Text messages, bank transfers, confessions, all aligning. The breaking point came when a surprise witness appeared, George, one of the captured thugs. He stood, trembling, pointing straight at Richard. "We only acted under his orders. He said, 'Make the girl and the baby disappear,' and he'd pay us double. He promised protection for life if we succeeded." The courtroom erupted in shock. Adewale clenched his fists in the front row, eyes blazing. He rose to his feet, his voice booming. "Enough! This man betrayed our blood, Our very family. He tried to murder my daughter and the one who saved her. Your Honor, I demand the harshest punishment. Richard's face paled, but he forced a sneer. Cousin, don't forget, without me, you would never have built this empire. If I fall, you will not stand either. His words cut like a knife, but only into himself, for they revealed his ambition, his complicity in dark deeds. The room buzzed with outrage. The judge struck the gavel, voice resounding. After reviewing all evidence and testimony, this court sentences Richard to life imprisonment. The gavel slammed down. The courtroom erupted. Cheers, tears, relief. Adewale closed his eyes, breathing out a long sigh. Amaka hugged the baby close, tears streaming, whispering, "Justice has been served." Richard was dragged away, face twisted in rage, shouting, "I'll return! You'll regret this!" But his cries were drowned beneath the roar of the crowd, celebrating the fall of a traitor. Amaka lifted her gaze to her mother. Mama Amaka gripped her daughter's hand, her voice trembling yet proud. "My child, we've endured so much. Today, heaven itself revealed justice. From now on, live with dignity. Never forget, the kindness that saved us is our true strength." In that moment, Amaka felt a lightness flood her heart. She looked at the baby in her arms, then at Adewale, the man who had gone from stranger to protector. In the sunlight streaming through the courtroom windows, she knew a new chapter of her life had begun. Yet she also understood this path ahead would not be lined with roses. To survive in a world of wealth and schemes, her compassion and will would be the only weapons to keep her whole. 1 month after the historic trial, the Adewale mansion had transformed. Gone was the tension and gloom, now replaced with laughter, the chatter of children. Amaka still felt out of place in this world of wealth, but the fear was gone. She now walked into school each morning in a crisp uniform, no longer kneeling in the dust to beg for coins. Each day, the school bus stopped at the gate, and Amaka stepped down with her little sister in her arms, eyes shining with hope. Thanks to proper medical care, Mama Amaka slowly regained her strength. No longer pale and bedridden, she could now walk around the garden, planting little flowers. Some afternoons, she sat quietly on a wooden chair in the mansion's courtyard, watching her daughter study, her heart overflowing with gratitude. She often wondered, if Amaka hadn't brought that baby home from the trash heap, would we ever have seen this light? The infant, now officially named Abini, meaning we are blessed, grew up surrounded by love. Every time Abini giggled, the whole house seemed to glow brighter. Adewale was captivated. Sometimes he would carry the baby through the long corridors, whispering softly, as if afraid to lose another second of fatherhood. Years of grief over his missing child slowly healed in the warmth of Abini's laughter. One evening, Adewale called Amaka and her mother into his study. He placed a folder of documents on the table before them. "These," he said firmly, "are the papers for legal adoption. From this day forward, Amaka, you are officially my daughter. I don't just want to repay you. I want you to be part of this family. Forever." Amaka froze, tears welling in her eyes. Her voice broke. You truly want to adopt me? But I'm just a girl who once picked scraps. How could I?" Adewale cut her off, his voice both commanding and tender. "No, you are not a girl from the trash. You are the one who saved your sister. You gave me back my child, gave me back hope. Your kindness is the greatest treasure of all. I want to protect it, to nurture it, so you can become the person you were always meant to be." Mama Amaka burst into tears, clutching her daughter. The room filled with the light of rebirth and joy. From then on, Amaka embarked on a new journey. She was educated, taught business and leadership. But above all, Adewale repeated one lesson over and over. You may grow rich, you may hold power, but if you lose compassion, you will have nothing. Those words etched themselves deep in Amaka's heart. As she grew, she proposed that she and Adewale establish a foundation, the Abini Light Fund, dedicated to helping orphans and abandoned children. Whenever she spoke of it, Amaka would say, "I was once one of those children. I know the hunger, the cold, and the sting of contempt. I don't want anyone else to endure that again." The foundation flourished. Thousands of children went to school. Thousands of single mothers found support. People began calling Amaka the compassionate heart of Africa. Yet she always remembered, it all began with one simple choice: the day she refused to abandon a baby in the trash. At the 10-year anniversary of the foundation, Amaka, now a graceful, confident young woman, stood before hundreds on stage. With shining eyes, she told her story. "If not for that day, if not for the small moment when I chose to hold an innocent baby in my arms, there would be no me, no foundation, no thousands of smiles today." Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can change the destiny of an entire life. The hall fell silent, then erupted in thunderous applause. From the front row, Adewale's eyes glistened with pride. Mama Amaka held Abini, now a radiant young girl, and the two of them smiled through tears of joy. Outside, the sunset bathed the sky in red, as if bearing witness to this journey, from darkness into light, for a family once lost in despair. And the story's final message rang out clear. In a world full of cruelty, kindness is the only light that guides us. Plant one seed of compassion, and you may change not only your destiny, but someone else's forever.